When you look back at the club now to the club that you bought all them years ago, it's unrecognisable, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is unrecognisable in lots and lots of ways, you know. I'm not one of those who likes to live in the past too much, but yeah, when you go back to when I first bought it to where we are now, infrastructure-wise, the future in sight, it's very, very different. But the one thing that I always go back to is there's only really one league's difference. So that's frustrating. But we've done so much and we've gone so far, but we could have gone further. But that's still going to happen. And I feel now we're better equipped to go further. We've gone further before, and I feel once we get back there, we're much better equipped as a football club in so many different ways with all the things happening. And I said it during the summer that I was speaking to BBC in an interview, and I said the decisions, the changes, the policies, the little implementations that happened after the playoffs in May, and what I decided and what I wanted to happen at the club and had to happen, and everyone had to be on board, otherwise they wouldn't be here. I feel they've happened in a very quick way. It wasn't revolutionary, it was evolutionary. And that was a big difference. And I think the evolution of what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to do, we're starting to see. And it's coming. And it will come. And when it happens, the club will be in a superb position.
What area do you feel has changed the most since you took over?
We get a lot of slating for, you know, the club's still non-league in so many ways, commercially and food-wise, and you know the entertainment on match day experience and everything else in the stadium. But people wouldn't believe the figures. If I show people the figures where we were economically as a club when I first bought it to where we are now, we're miles ahead. People like Alex do a great job, and Horace obviously commercially. You know, we're thriving as a club commercially, as opposed to a lot of clubs. And you know, over the last few years of recession, we've done very well. Our sponsorship base is growing all the time. Revenue streams are growing. The shop's doing fantastic. Everything around the club commercially that you could call commercial is doing very well. Obviously the tickets, it's always been a bane of my existence, and the crowd's not growing, and people think we don't do enough about that, but we do. You know, since I've been here, we've done so many different offers for ticket prices. We've practically given tickets away, and you're now running the schools program, which we feel is going to pay off in the next few years, and is really, really important. We've recruited in 40 schools. There's going to be thousands of kids coming here. We're going to try and entice their parents in, and you know, that was just the start of it there, the win against Barnsley. Obviously the football side of it has changed, but obviously, you know, we've always been used to something happening, whether it be promotion, fighting to stay in the championship, playoff battles. It's always been kind of epitomised my ownership at Peterborough United, that we've always been competing for something. It's never really been boring and mundane. So I suppose that's one good thing for our fans. So lots has changed. Some have stayed the same, and some things still have to change. And I'm very happy with the progress we're making. Like I said, the evolution's taking place. It's not going to happen overnight, but by the end of the season, where I want us to be, I think we're going to be.
What do you struggle with the most in regards to wanting change and getting what you want? Where have you struggled the most?
The speed of things, you know, because I've always been a fast-paced person. When I want something to happen, everyone who knows me, who works for me, knows it's yesterday. But we don't have a time machine, so today I'll have to do it. And getting people to be on my wavelength for that speed of change. You know, like the gaffer, for example, when we met in May after the playoffs, and I said, I want this, and this to happen. He knew I meant business, and he jumped on board with that, and he's been very supportive of that, and we've supported each other, and we're seeing those changes happen on the football side of things. The crowds are something we're constantly fighting against and trying to build on, and I'm doing my best all the time. Sometimes you feel like you're fighting a losing battle. You know, you'll win a great game of football and you'll have no one come and see. You then go and have a decent crowd and you don't play your best and you lose a game of football, and everyone's moaning and saying, well, if that's what you're putting on, that's why we're not coming back, and that's why we're... It's such an easy excuse for people to say, well, we're not going because the entertainment's not there. You know, well, there's football clubs up and down the country who haven't played decent football in 10 years and they still absolutely sell the place out. So I'm not sure that it always goes hand in hand, that it has to be, you have to play this swashbuckling Brazilian from the 60s and 70s type football to fill your ground up. I think that's a very easy cop-out and an excuse. I'm one of those firm believers that you support your football club, and if you can afford to, you go, regardless. You know, win, draw, lose, play good, play brilliant, play indifferently, you support your football club. That's the way it is, you know. And people will always criticise me for criticising the people who don't turn up and who vote with their feet. Well, I'm sorry, regardless of what's going on at the club, through bad, through good, I still turn up and I still pay the bills. That's my job as custodian, as chairman of the football club, and all I ask for is the city of Peterborough, which is a very large city, is to support what we're trying to do. We do a lot of good in the city, and we do a lot of good at the club. So I'm hoping, as we get more and more success, that we'll buck the trend.
Is it still? It was one of my questions for later, actually. But the dwindle in support here, has that? I know it's frustrated you. Is it frustrating you as much now, or are you more used to it now, and you're sort of getting your head around it a bit more into why?
No, it frustrates me more now. It gets to me more now than ever. I'm only human, and I need help too, and I can only do what I can do, but I do need the thousands of people that we have as a fan base to show up, and when I see crowds of 5,500 or whatever else, I'm not going to lie, it frustrates the life out of me, and it puts me in a bad place sometimes regards owning the football club. It's not a threat, I'm just saying that's me being completely honest. If there's a lot of football clubs I could have bought out there, and I could still buy out there, and if I did what I did with them, the support, the crowds would be through the roof in some of those places. So that's something that still always weighs in my mind, and something I always have to consider. So, but I'm fighting the battle, and I keep fighting the battle.
During your time, you've come across a lot. Well, you've had a lot of success, but you've also had a lot of knockbacks as well. What's as we sit here today, which one outweighs the other in your mind?
I wrote an article at the start of the season for the Peterborough Telegraph, and I spoke about we all had our chip on our shoulder last year because we kept talking about what happened at Crystal Palace in the Championship and the 54 points, and I said we got to put it to bed. And someone mentioned it to me today, and I said put it to bed, forget it. I'm not interested in what happened 2 years ago. I'm not interested in what happened last year. We can't live in the past. We can't simmer over things that didn't happen or that did happen. So I don't even want to talk about it. Do you know what I mean? What were the worst bits? I only want to look forward now. And we got to lose the chip. Our fans have to lose the chip. I said to our manager and our players, lose the chip. And I have to lose the chip off my shoulder about what happened. It's not going to get us promoted. So we have to turn the page over and we have to go again. And that's what we decided to do in the summer. And that's what I said to people, which was really important. Lose the chip. Let's be patient. Let's give the project and what we're trying to do product-wise out on the pitch time, because of what we're trying to do with a very young squad. So I'm not one now to look back on those horrible events and whatever else. That's football, that's life. Nobody died, a football club got relegated, boo-hoo. Happens up and down the country. Now we just have to pick ourselves up and forget about that and just go forward.
How difficult is that for you though, to learn and adjust and deal with the setbacks? Because knowing you, I know you're a person that likes success, you demand success. So when these failures do come about, it must be a bit of pill to swallow. How have you found that adjustment?
I've said it before, and I've said it in interviews before. I don't dwell on things very long. I've got a great support system around me, a lovely family, and a wife, 3 kids, a lot of good people around me. My dad, and they would never let me dwell on things like that for too long. And there's nothing you can do. You can't change the past. It's like when you make a mistake. The only rule I've got in life about mistakes is never make the same mistake twice. Make it once, fine, we're human. Make it twice, you're an idiot. So I don't want to look back on them now. We just have to go forward and make sure we don't repeat any mistakes we've made in the past, and that's key for me. So, even with defeats, a couple of hours, it's in your system, you feel rotten, just like a supporter will. Next day it's gone, it's forgotten. Next game, please.
You waltzed into the club 8 years ago now with your high expectations.
Sure.
And your philosophies. How proud are you that 8 years on, the football clubs still stick by those same philosophies?
Yeah, important. We like to play good football. We like to play attacking football. For me, it's about winning. I would hate us to set up to not lose a game. I want us to set up to win a game. And we talked about last season. I felt last season was too much of that. Set up not to lose. For me, it's always be willing to lose it to win it, and that's always my philosophy in life. And it's the same at the football club. That's a very, very important philosophy. So that's something that'll never change with me. You'll never see a different brand of football. No matter who's the manager here at the football club, we have to play good football. And the policy that we have will never ever change. I've never lied to the supporters. Our policy's tried and tested, particularly with the youth side of things, and that young and hungry policy that everyone else seems to have nicked and used. But we still do it better than most.
With in regards to your relationship with Darren, how's that evolved and progressed over the 8 years? I mean, take away the dip in the middle. How's that relationship developed?
Since the dip in the middle, it's again, you talk about learning from your mistakes. We really haven't had many rows. When I say rows, we had some big rows back in the first spell. Since that dip in the middle and he left and then he came back, we just understand each other really, really well. I'm frustrated for the gaffer. You know, he doesn't get credit for the job he does. You know, I even said it to him the other day. This is a guy who, with the football club, has produced 30-odd million quid's worth of young talent that's been sold on to bigger clubs per se. There's 3 promotions on his CV. Has won the JPT, which is the league trophy for League 1 and League 2. Has been involved in the playoffs again. Has kept Peterborough United in the Championship with a low budget. Is now in the Guinness Book of Records for being relegated with 54 points after losing the first 8-9 games. He doesn't get any credit for that. You know, you've got Russell Slade gets a Cardiff job. You know, for doing what? You got Uwe Rosler, who Dave Whelan's raving about last year, who is now under pressure in his job, who did what? Got a great job. You look at some of the jobs being given to the managers, and you know, you got Carl Robinson every day being linked with another football club. For what? There's so many managers are getting great opportunities with little on their CV. They've done nothing in the game.
Why is that?
You get people who you get other fans who slate our manager and say he's this, he's that, whatever else. Look at his record. Look at his win ratio. Look at the goals his team score every year. Look at the way he plays football. Look at his achievements. Those people aren't even in his class league when it comes to achievements. Look at them. Those people are nearly runs. A lot of them have got playoffs and playoff on and nearly there and whatever else, but they're now in big jobs and they're nearly runs. You know, my manager has achieved some amazing things, you know, and he's done it, yeah, with good support from me. But look at the product. Look at what he's provided for our fans, for our club, for
this
Peterborough
must be
United,
a good thing, because we get to keep him.
No, of course it is, but I'm that type of chairman that I want him recognised. When you see names linked with other jobs and whatever else, and some of the names, like I said, they're nearly runs and never beens, and you never see him, or I never get really a phone call, you know, that's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. So that's what's wrong with football. You know, sometimes it's about, you know, the big name and the person in the moment, and if someone's got a better agent who's getting their name touted about.
Is that what it is? Is it down to agents?
I don't know, because some of them end up getting the jobs. Maybe it is. Who knows? You know what I mean? But all I said to my gaffer is listen, do what we got to do with this young team and whatever else, and watch all of that change. And it doesn't really bother him. I bring it up more than him. You know what I mean? But I'm sure his staff probably turn their heads thinking about it as well sometimes. You know, it's ridiculous. So that's something I do feel sorry for my gaffer. But going back to the original question, we're always in a good place, and we're very honest with each other. And if people think I don't get upset when we lose, I don't ask my manager the question that most fans ask or moan about, they're surely mistaken, because I do. And that's what the gaffer knows with me. He knows he's going to get like 100% honesty. You know, when we lost to Crewe the other night, straight away. You know, he'd always get my text after the game, win, lose or draw. He'd get that text, and then the next morning we spoke. You know what I mean? And it's bang. You know, listen, we've lost to 3 of the bottom 5. What's going on? You know, it's a Tuesday night game again. What's going on? You know, we're down to 10 men. You know what I mean? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Well, I do that. And I know people, our fans will moan and whatever else, but trust me, me as the custodian, I'm doing that on your behalf.
And what if he says something that you don't agree with?
I tell him. That's football, but he makes the final decision. There's been cases where he's done lots of things I don't agree with, and I've told him, but that's his prerogative. He's a manager. You have to allow them to make the mistakes, make the decisions that turn out to be the right decisions, because all you can ever do is, people say about influencing the manager and picking a team and everything else. As a good chairman, all you can do is give your manager your philosophy and your policies of the club. Ask him, tell him the way you want the football played. In other words, you don't want long ball, horrible stuff. You want decent football. Tell him what his transfer budget is. Work with him on the policy of the transfer. What kind of transfers you want brought to the club. Be honest with him. Support him and back him as best you can. Give him the best staff around him. Give him the best training facilities possible. And then be there for him through the highs and the lows. That's all you can do as a chairman of a football club. And that's all I try and do. And this season I've spent a fortune on a training ground. You've got great staff around him. You know, I've given him great support through the highs and the lows. I've backed him in the transfer market. Yes, we've sold high, but we've also bought high as well. You know, I work with him very closely on our scouting and how we recruit players. It's a big thing between me, him and Barry. People always say, well, you must have umpteen scouts. We don't employ scouts. It's just the 3 of us. That's what we do. So it works for us as a football club. And all I'll ever say to any chairman out there and all these lunatics, some of these foreign owners I see come in, and you know, the way they treat managers and what happens, whatever else, is trust me, listen to what I'm saying. That's how you can do the best you can for your football club and support your manager. And, you know, losing a couple of games, Sure, you can change it, but it's not always positive influence or positive change for your football club. I think it can be destructive. Sometimes they need that support and help.
But
and that's all I do.
you've learnt to be that way.
Of course I
through
have.
your time
Quickly,
developing.
quickly. I made mistakes early on. I've learned very quickly. But when I look back at some of my choices and the people I let go, I got it right, didn't I? Mark Cooper, showing what a great manager he is. Mightn't have been the right time for us, but when I recruited him, I got it spot on. Look at him now. You know, Gary Johnson, you know what I mean, came back, ended up getting promotion again to the Championship. Wasn't a bad recruitment. So, you know, done all right in the recruitment side. Maybe my patience could have been a bit better.
When you went through the mill and you went through a few managers, did you, you know, at the end of that, did you sort of appreciate how difficult a football manager's job is?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. The pressure they're under. Geez, I sit and watch games. I see how difficult their job is, you know. But some people don't help themselves. Some managers can handle it better than others. Relationship between me and the manager is key. So I've had managers work for me who couldn't handle that relationship, and how could I describe this? We weren't on the same wavelength. I think that's very important, but maybe some of that's my fault, but also a lot of that's a manager's fault. I read Roy Keane saying yesterday one of his regrets is he could never manage chief executives or chairman because of the way he is and he's too honest. Well, then he shouldn't be a manager, because that's part of the game, and something my gaffer's learned as well. You have to be able to handle all aspects of a football club. It's not just about picking a team and going out and coaching on a Saturday. It's I don't believe in this head coach nonsense. I think it's the biggest load of crap that's ever been created, you know. As a football manager, it's, you know, that's the job, that's your role, and you have to handle all the aspects and expectations that go along with that.
Come the summer, you decided to give Darren a new 4-year contract. You know, that divided the camp a little bit. You know, I think the majority would have saw it for what it was. You were rewarding, you know, the most successful manager the club's ever had. But there were some out there that, you know, saw it as, well, maybe you're rewarding the manager for what some would look at as a failed season, bar the JPT trophy.
No, continuity. We had to change lots of things, and I believed I was the right person to implement the changes, and I thought they might take some time, they mightn't happen overnight, so there was no point in giving them a 1-year deal to make some evolutionary changes. I've just said evolution can't happen in a month, a week, a day. It's going to take time, so with that has to come continuity, hence why I gave the manager a good contract, and he deserved it. And yeah, people go back and we talk about last season, which we'll put to bed again now. We got to one game before Wembley in the playoffs, and we won the league trophy in R2 in League 1 and League 2, and scored a lot of goals. And looking back on it, I'd say 75% of football clubs in League 1 and League 2, their fans would have loved a season like that. So I called it failure at the time. I've since revised that. For our expectations and with that chip on our shoulder, it probably was, but it wasn't. So the contract and me agreeing with the manager he was going to prolong his stay here a little bit longer was the right thing to do.
What do you say to fans out there that don't back the manager?
I think they're fickle. I think, no disrespect, they have got it wrong. They should back him. He's only ever done good things for Peterborough United. His period of management since he's been here, it's probably only been the best period in the club's history, bar one other manager, I think. So there's
Speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no reason not to back him. What's not to back? You know, he's running I think it's the youngest squad in the Football League, and they're playing some great football. And yeah, they lose some games, but you know, they're second in the league. They're doing okay. It's only a start. We're way ahead where we thought we'd be. You know, we thought this would come later. You know what I mean, as regards to position in the league. So I'm not even worried about the league table. You know what I mean? We're 14 games into a 46-game season, and we had different phases and plans in mind, and we're way ahead where we need to be. So back the manager. Stop worrying about all the things he's doing wrong and focus on all the things he's doing right.
As a duo, you've unearthed some, you know, incredible talent. Boyd, McAlsmith, McLean, Tomlin, Bennett, Gale, Sombolonga, now Madison. You know, I could go on and on. Out of the lot, what's been your personal favourite unearthing?
I always go back to Tomo, Lee Tomlin, one of my personal favourites when I so much ability and talent. I think he could have been a lot better, and I still think he can be a lot better, Tomo. I think he can score a lot more goals, and I think he knows himself. If it weren't for a few other things, he'd already be in the Premier League, so he was one of them. Gailey for me was a big one, you know, because we pretty much the business we did there, but having, you know, the way we scouted him and took him in the end, that was a great one. And then obviously Magic Marcus, you know, he's one that I'm very excited about, because when I saw him and I watched the footage of him and read the reports, I could see a hybrid of Tomlin and Boyd. That number 10 we've been missing since Tomlin went. you know, and a little bit like Boydie and a little bit like Lee Tomlin. And he's got a bit of everything, and I think he can go on and surpass them. And he's been at the top, and he blew his opportunity, and he's come back down, and he's got things wrong in his life, and now he's back on track. I think he's got so much ability, he could be anything. But in saying that, with all the, obviously the headlines recently and all the press attention, feet on the ground time, we don't want to put too much pressure on him. He's just turned 21. He's only been with us 5 minutes. All of this talk about when will he be sold, there's fans, polls about when will he be sold. Trust me, he's going to be with us a long time longer. So let's enjoy it. And the key now is for the management staff to work on all the things that he still needs to improve as a 21-year-old footballer. So he's loved by his teammates, he's a great lad, he's brilliant in the dressing room, he's great in the training ground, and we've got another 20 odd lads like that. So that's what I'm really excited about. It's not just about one person. I could name so many players in that team that are talented that will go on and do great things.
When you first took over the football club, you were throwing money at left, right and centre. You've since...
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. You've since stabilised the club, and it's more or less self-sufficient now, which is obviously the way it should be. But to be
wish it was self-sufficient.
But to be near enough self-sufficient, you have to sell players in order to bring that up.
You do. I mean, people talk about Brit being sold and what did you get of that and whatever else. Not a penny. I mean, even with the Brit sale, I've still put, I think it's nearly $5 million into the football club in the last 11 months, personally. So, you know, that's the problem when you're at this level. It's a completely different level from the next one, hence why I'm frustrated at Gates. That's the kind of money I've put up. The Brit deal was, you know, again, not a penny of that goes to me. It goes back into the football club and what we're trying to do. So we are at a point where we're nearly self-sufficient when we do those sales all the time. When we're in the Championship, we're not only self-sufficient, but I can start getting some of my money back as well. So there are all the great things about being in the Championship. And someone said the other day, well, what's a perfect scenario? I said, well, 5-6 good seasons in the Championship will change the life of this football club for the next 25 years. Because it will enable us to get rid of my debt, it will enable us to grow crowds over to the 10 to 12,000 range, and it will enable us to also try and buy the stadium back. So it could change our football club entirely. And all the good things that are happening on the training pitch and with the U team and everything else will all come to fruition. So that's the importance and the relevance of being back in the Championship.
How annoyed do you get by fans or certain fans out there saying that we're now a selling club?
Every club's a selling club. Every club's a selling club. Real Madrid sold Di Maria to Man United, didn't they? He was one of their best players. He was man of the match in the European Cup final. They sold him. Why did they sell him? Because he wanted more money and a new contract that they couldn't give him. So what does that tell you about Real Madrid, the most wealthiest club in the world? They had to sell their player. We've been in that situation. Player won't sign a new contract. We have to sell the player. Every club's a selling club in football. Sorry, there's not one that isn't. Maybe with the exception of Manchester City. But I guarantee you this, if Real Madrid come in tomorrow for Aguero and he wants to go to Real Madrid, Manchester City are going to have to sell Sergio Aguero. That's football. We're no more a selling club than any other club in the country. Norwich, just down the road, probably going to get out of the Championship this year, probably win the Championship. Sold a few of their assets in the summer because they came down a level. Why? Does that make them a selling club? Not necessarily. That's football. That's the economics involved. Players know and people know that when they come to our club, they're not going to be here forever. All right, we're not a Premier League club. Young players who come in here and buy into the project that we sell to them and market to them, it's based on the fact that they're going to come here, they're going to improve, they're going to have a good couple of years with us, they're going to help the football club improve, never mind their own self-development, and then they're going to go on to bigger things. That's football. You
say like it's quite easy to detach yourself from that, but I mean, as a chairman, you know, it's difficult for fans. But as a chairman, when you more or less sometimes single-handedly find a player, unearth him, bring him in, develop him, only to then have to sell him for him to apply his trade in another club.
Did I want to lose our leading scorer 2 days before our first game of the season?
Yeah.
After everything we'd planned during the summer? No.
So how difficult is that for you as a chairman?
The beauty there is we had a plan in place already. Yeah. We all sat down in Portugal and I actually played a game with the management staff and we all said, right, we're going to throw out situations here because I talked about it being the moving train. I felt last year when the train was moving on the track and we were jumping in front of it, we couldn't stop it. It was running us over. Things were happening. And I said, right, let's put ourselves in a few moving train situations this time and I want to see how you react. And I played a mental apathy game with them all. And one of them was, right, we get an X amount of £1 million offer for Brit. A, do we take it? And B, who do we buy? And I had them all write down the 2 answers on the paper. And it was unanimous in the room. If we got X amount of money, we would all take it. And everyone put their replacements down. And there's the little things we play. And unfortunately that happened. There's nothing you can do when an offer like that comes in and the player knows that he's going to get 18 to 22 grand a week. He's going to go. So unfortunately you can do everything in your power to keep him, but it's very difficult to keep someone after you're telling everyone else you've bought who's come in that they're going to get the next move. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Eventually in a couple of years. And that's a big part of our price when we sign a player. You know, come here, rebuild your career, we're going to develop you and you're going to go on to bigger things. Well, no, I'm not, because that player there wasn't allowed to go to such and such club and you kept him against his will and turn into a tip. We don't want to get in that situation. So we do what's best for business. And for me, what was best for business was Britt had to go once that deal had come on the table.
Is it a fine line though? Because obviously there will be clubs that come in and sniff around. Is
Sure.
is it a fine line?
There's a fine line and there's a timing. There's a timing line as well. The fine line's really important because we had the Celtic thing with Thomas, and that was all about timing. If Celtic had spent 2 weeks trying to buy Lee Tomlin and done it properly and given us time to react, you know, it wouldn't have been so messy. Not 7 hours before a window closes and the day of a game. So there's always a fine line. Are people worried we're going to lose players in January? Of course they are, because of our history of selling. You know, I can't stop people bidding ridiculous amount of money for our players. Are we going to sell anyone in January? No, because we've done our business, we're budgeted up, we're ready to go for the rest of the year. The players all know that as well, that no one's leaving in January that we don't want to leave. And what you have to explain sometimes to a player is the summer window's around the corner. And that's what at the time we were trying to explain to Lee Tomlin with the Celtic, you know, it'll happen again, don't worry. So we don't want to find ourselves in that position.
You
know?
say no one to go in January, but money talks, doesn't it?
Money always talks, you know, but we're in a position where money doesn't have to talk until next summer.
Yeah, but if someone come in with a ridiculous...
Money doesn't have to talk till next summer.
Okay. Which, out of the lot, which has hurt you the most? Which player has been the hardest to let go?
The hardest to let go. You know, obviously going back to, you know, Craig was a big one to let go because we just got back to the chat. He had such a magnificent season, you know. Probably his best season of his career when he got that move to Brighton. So he was a really, really hard one to let go. You know, Tomlin was a hard one last January, but the time was right with everything that was going on with the red cards. Gailey was a real... if we'd stayed in the Championship, he wouldn't have been let go. Not even for the money that was offered at the time. You know what I mean? We you know, and he would have probably enjoyed staying with us another year as well. He was that type of lad. He wouldn't have kicked up a fuss. But none of them have been, you know, where I've completely wrestled with myself over it. You know, as I said to you, I always have to put my what's best for business hat on.
What's how often? I mean, you mentioned previous about the scouting network being yourself, the gaffer, and Barry. How often have you found players that the gaffer ain't really that keen on, but you've gone out and bought anyway, and they've proved everyone wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I've never brought a player to the club the manager didn't say yes to. You know what I mean? I've always got to get final authority off him. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Marcus is one of them. I went in, we spoke in the manager's office at the training ground, and I said, listen, that boy I like and we'll be keeping an eye on him. I said, he played Wrexham the other night, give Keatsy a ring. And the gaffer in front of me, I said, Keatsy's going to tell you this boy's special, sign him, I guarantee. And I winked at him. So he rang Keatsy in front of me, and Keatsy said to him on the phone, yeah, the boy was something special. He's a bit like Boydie, you're going to love him, gaffer, blah, blah, blah. So then we had Scarfy and another scout go and watch him a couple of times just to give him the final rundown that everyone was A-okay with it. And then I went to work and started doing what I do best, and that's negotiate the buy it. And then made the deal happen. It goes both ways. You know, the gaffer will ring me about a player. You know, I'll do my reconnaissance research, and then we'll get the scouts on the case. And that's just how it works at our club. It's a great thing. We've never ever brought anyone in really that we both disagree with. There's been one or two I wasn't sure about. Sergio Torres was one. His injury record was horrific. He averaged 19 games a season as opposed to the 30 minimum that you want when you sign a player. So I was worried about him. He was injured a bit when he joined us, like I thought. Some players are like that in their career. What was the other one? But I still brought him in. I still backed the gaffer. The other one was... there was one other one as well which didn't really suit the way we played, and I wasn't overly keen, but we brought him in, and you know, I backed the staff. Well, that's what we do as a football club. We don't always get it right. You know, I know our fans will moan about this player and that player that we're moving on and selling and blah, blah, blah. You can't always get it right. Even with our good transfer model, even with what we do with our policy, it's not foolproof. It's not 100% because a lot of it can come down to the player as well. The player himself has to, you know, do his bit. can't just be we go buy a player and he suddenly wins the Golden Boot and scores 50 goals and he gets sold for 15 million. There's a lot of work that goes in between, from the management staff and the coaches and the work they do with the player to the player's own attitude and the player's own application, and that's key too.
Yeah, we spoke about the manager. If we look at, it's important to remember that he doesn't do it alone.
Sure.
He does have a backroom staff.
Absolutely.
And, at the moment, from the outside looking in, it looks very harmonious. I mean, where does this group of coaches sit with you to the ones we've had previous?
From the kit man all the way to the top, they're a brilliant bunch of people. They're great people to work with. I was down at the training ground the other day to see all the work that's going on with the new offices, and they're just great. Even right to the youth staff as well. Even the people who aren't with the first team management squad, who are still in the background, who do a lot of work with the management staff. They do scouting and video analysis, and you've got Dave Robertson and his staff who do brilliant jobs. So everyone's pulling together and they're all on the same wavelength. That's what's really important. Strax has stepped up seamlessly. The players love him. Brini brings that confidence and experience of being a top international player, and you can see him what the players think of him on the training ground. Even Jimmy, who's obviously a bit of a joker and a bit of a jack the lad and everything else, as you can tell, he loves the art, his profession and what he does, and wants to coach, and all these guys want to coach at a higher level. And I spoke to them. It's not just about the players getting a multi-million-pound move. Some of these guys want to go on and coach. To be a goalkeeping coach at a Premier League club, you get £500,000 a year. It's life-changing money. Same for a defensive coach, same for an assistant manager. This is only the start for them, and they've bought into what we're trying to do. And in return, we've backed them and supported them and moved some of them down here, and now they're working night and day to put us back in the Championship. So it's a good camp, it's a good place. There's some great people here. We made some really, really good changes in the summer, and from bottom to the top, we're in a good place.
To bring in those people, there had to be changes, and I think in the summer, one of the shock, I suppose, departures was that of Kevin Russell. More so because of his relationship with the manager.
Yeah.
How did that affect Darren, and how did it affect you?
Gaffer had a tough decision to make, and look.
Was it your decision or the Gaffer's?
On the spot. Let's just say I suggested the changes had to happen in the management staff. After what happened in the staleness of last year and the evolution I wanted to take place, I felt new approaches were needed. However, I wasn't forcing that on anyone. That decision had to be the Gaffer's. It was advice from me, and it was thought about, and then it came back, and the decision was made. It was the right thing to do, and it was the right time to do it. And in fairness, Roos's now working for Stoke. He's doing great. I've seen him twice since he's left. He's come to games and come in to see me. We've got no issue whatsoever. But a change was needed. That's for sure, in my opinion. And with what we were going to do and changing the style of what we were going to do, change was definitely needed. So, it's a tough question you're asking, and there's no any right answer to give. So I'm giving it as best I can. But the reality is the Gaffer made the final decision, and what he's put together now is he's put together a good team of people.
Yeah, are you proud of the way he's adjusted with
he was seamless. Very difficult, your best friend. This is a guy he's been with for years. He came right up through the ranks with him when he became manager and everything else, and very, very difficult decision to make, but in the end he made it. He made the right decision, and he was man enough to make it. He took it on the chin, he did it, and he was fully, once he'd made that decision and he rang me and told me what he wanted to do, he bought into it himself and he made it happen, and I respect him for that, and that's what I like about the Gaffer. He's got great belief once he makes a decision to follow a trip.
When we talk about staff at the football club, it's also important to remember the staff that work behind the scenes off the field, and I suppose without those staff the football club wouldn't be operational.
Hang on, do you want that pat in the back? No, you're absolutely right.
How impressed have you been with the work that goes off the field?
But Bob Sims, I've said it before, I can go to the States and not worry about my football club. That's a testament to the job Bob does, and then the staff around Bob. There's everything me, Barry and the manager do, and we get a lot of plaudits and articles written about that, but there's no articles written about the work, the tireless work that Bob does at the football club, and then the people around him. There's, whether it's you, whether it's Joe, whether it's Phil, whether it's Chris. I've already mentioned the commercial guys, Emma, all the people, the shop. There's so much that goes on around the club behind the scenes that people don't see. Right to Mary in the, in the front office, in the reception, those people are the heartbeat of a football club, because they're here night and day. And if they could, they'd put a shirt on and go out and bleed for the football club on match day. But they do just the same on match day. We're working in their own roles. They play a key role here. So, even to Bobby here in the come match day, who looks after all the away guests. You know what I mean? Brilliant people to have here at the club.
With I suppose one thing that's overwhelmingly obvious is the support that we have as a football club from local businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, you only have to look around the stadium
Superb.
to see that we're trying to find more space for sponsorship
Yeah.
boards. All the boxes are
We've
sold
got
out.
we've got a waiting list for boards. We've got a waiting list for the boxes. I could put those boxes up 20% and they'd sell out. The community and the business community have embraced us as a football club and what we do, and we give them great exposure. All the sponsors, we've got a new shirt sponsor, Nick George. Some of the things we've got going on, unbelievable. So, and people wouldn't believe it. And then they moan and they go on about the clubs run like a third world club and blah blah blah. But trust me, we kind of know what we're doing here.
With I mean, if we go back to the poor crowds that I know you're unhappy with, we are as a football club trying to look at that. I mean, we're going forward with surveys, one that's already out now. That's currently with season ticket holders about retention. How important do you feel that is from a football club's point of view? And what will we do with the results?
I'm a marketing guy, and you know that. And that's what I've always been. Marketing is the key. It's the window to the soul for any kind of business and any kind of sales business. And the surveys are important because you've run the survey and we've hit over 4,500 people and we've had 25% already respond. And that data is so important to find out what people like, what they don't like, what we're doing right, what we're not doing right, where we could be doing better. It's key, knowing your customer, knowing the demographic, all those little improvements. These are things we've been working on. We've spent fortunes on the ticketing systems over the last few years, the CRM system, all the things we've spent money on now is coming to fruition where we can improve as a business and give a better customer experience. So these things are key, and things will get better. We'll try our best. We'll work with the fans. We already meet the 3 supporters groups every week. We liaise with them, we work with them, you know what I mean? So it's not like we're not in tune with a normal supporter on the street. We are, and we're doing our best, and we listen. I always say a perfect salesperson, all right, has got a tiny mouth and 2 massive ears. That's a picture of a perfect salesperson, because they listen to their customer. And that's exactly what we're trying to do now as a football club. So we're hoping all these things we learn, we can start now implementing some subtle changes that are good changes to make people happier.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, people will ask. What will you do with the results? Will they be looked upon, and will they be?
I've got to take them out of the bin over there, and then see that's the biggest thing. People think, well, you're not going to do anything. It's not what we're about as a football club. We will make. It's what I call subtle changes, because you can't make massive changes straight away. It has to be done subtly. It takes time.
With a way of increasing the attendances, the football club are bringing in the schools initiative. This, for those that don't know, this is a pair of tickets to every child at every school that signs up with us to free games. That's going to see potentially over 30,000 new faces come to London Road. How important is that for yourself and the football club's future?
Massive, because you take 1,000 kids to a game. If you get 20 of them hooked, that's 20 parents who are probably going to buy a season ticket, in March or April, so they can start bringing their families. It's so important, particularly with all the new families that move to Peterborough. So the future's key. It's such a cliche, the future's the future, and whatever else, but it is key. From a footballing point of view, from a business side point of view, we're now trying to get into all of those youngsters who are basically now growing up in Peterborough, have moved to Peterborough, relocated to Peterborough, stopping them become Arsenal fans or, London club fans, and making sure this is their football club. And it starts now. And yeah, if you've got to throw free tickets to entice them in and get their parents in, so be it. It's working for us.
When you look at the football team now, the current squad of players, very young, and I suppose what we're trying to do different to last season is take the pressure off.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you manage a team of young players without the pressure of demanding success, but yet wanting success?
Easy. When I had my one-on-ones with all the players in Portugal in the summer, and I kept mentioning the same thing to them, which for me repetition is very important in any walk of life. And that's what I said to them is, don't get too high and don't get too low. Stay there. When it's great, and then when it's horrible, it's horrible. You've got to try and find a happy medium, particularly young people, because otherwise they'll wilt under pressure. And you've got to allow them to make mistakes and grow. And this is what I keep saying to people. I keep referring back to this is like last year. I said it the other night. I think 8 of the starting 11 the other night weren't in the team last year. Now 9 of the starting 11 weren't in the team. 8 of them weren't even at the football club. What's last year got to do with this year's team? It's a completely different team. Think of all the players that were in that team the other night that weren't here last year. From Madison to Washington to Taylor to Michael Smith to Santos to Jack Baldwin, to Ben Alnwick. None of those players were here last year. So it's nothing, one's got nothing to do with the other. But what we did have the other night, and in many of the games is, I think we had an 18-year-old, we had a 19-year-old, we had 4 21-year-olds and 2 22-year-olds. 8 out of the 11 were 22 or under. That's what we're dealing with. And with players of that age group, and with that mentality that's maturing and developing, whatever else, comes time and patience. And allowing them to grow, and allowing them to go out and have stinkers. And allowing them to go out and have brilliant games. And they didn't have a stinker the other night. They weren't ruthless in either boxes. They dominated the game, they controlled the game, even against 10 men. They just weren't sharp in the right areas. And that's what happens with young players sometimes. And it's not the word inconsistency, and that's what people get frustrated with. What you've got is a great bunch of lads with great team spirit. The oldest player the other night was 26. Our most experienced player the other night, Football League-wise, most games appearances in the Championship, League 1 and League 2, was Michael Boswick, and he was sent off. It's our most experienced player. So, age is irrelevant. So my point is, with our fans and with all the pundits, and I had a media pundit having a go again and going on about Preston and typical posh and typical this. I said this in the summer. I said it to Alan Swan in the Telegraph. Patience. Allow them to make these mistakes. Allow them to get this out of their system now instead of the last 20 games. Because if they get it out of their system now and they grow and they learn from it, last 20 games, they won't do it. That's the difference. So every defeat, every time they go out and lose, this is something they're going to learn from. They've lost 1-0, 1-0, 2-1 and 2-1. There's your 4 losses in the league. Pretty close. And I think 3 of those losses the other team scored in the 88th minute. So it's not like they're going out and getting spanked, is it? They're losing games, and if you're going to lose in the right way, that's the right way to lose. You know what I mean? But they're not going out and not trying. So all I say is, give them a break. We know how good they can be. I don't think they've got anywhere near the level they can be. With all the injuries and the issues we've had and whatever else, now we've got suspensions, they're dealing with a lot. And it's a smaller squad, and it's a younger squad. So we have to take all those circumstances, and all those things that have happened into account, and we have to allow them to flourish. Because if we put too much expectation on them, too much criticism on them, get on the manager, go after them or whatever else, at that age, it's the wrong thing to do. And I'm not demanding success from them. I'm not demanding promotion. I'm not demanding we're back in the Championship. What I am demanding is they go out and play with freedom, they go out and play for fun, they go out and put on a display, they try and impress our fans, and they try and play football in the right way. That's what I'm demanding from them, and they give it their all. And if they give me most of those things and tick those boxes, I'm a happy chairman.
So, one of the big problems we identified from last season was players' contracts coming to an end. What have you got in place now to stop that from happening, say, this season or next?
Well, we've got most of the I would say majority of the squad pretty much tied down. The only ones probably that you're thinking contract-wise that are running out, from a younger player point of view, is you got Cozzy. He's got 18 months left, so we've got to obviously we've got to address that. We've obviously addressed Jermaine recently. I think the skipper. He's got 18 months left to run. So there are 2 people by the end of the season we'll be sitting down with and tying down new contracts.
We mentioned Maddison and him not going anywhere in January. How difficult do you feel that will be fending people off? Not just for Maddison,
all the time,
but all our young people this January.
You don't understand. It's not just Marcus. There's other players we're fending off all the time. We're getting bids, we're getting inquiries. I told you, and people thought I was lying in the summer. One of our younger players we were getting offers for all the time. Straight away after the playoffs last year, we were getting phone calls about this lad, and we only bought him in January. So, and that continues now. And that's going to happen. When you get a 19 to a 21-year-old who's playing football, who's getting headlines, who's doing well, you're going to get bigger clubs higher up the pyramid who are going to want to buy them. That's a compliment to our football club. That's football. If I go and sell one of those players for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 million, I think that'll be our next record. If I sell one for 12 million, trust me, what's going to happen? We're going to go out and we're going to buy 3 or 4 more of them. And we're going to go buy the ground back. That's what's going to happen. It's not the end of the world. Just like I said when we sold Lee Tomlin or we sold Britt, it's not the end of the world. By selling Britt, we brought in a lot of good players in the summer. Michael Smith, Is there a better right back than Michael Smith? Mr. Consistency. 100 grand, are you joking me? That's value for money. The boy has been brilliant. You know, Marcus Maddison. We bought Luke James. We bought JT, John Taylor. You know, you look at the business we did in the summer. Christian Burgess. Good young players, great age, who will only develop, evolve, get better. Good assets for the football club going forward. And it will help us win games. Look at all the signings we made off the back of our summer campaign. You know, that's good business. We sold Lee Tomlin last January. What did we do? We went and signed Ricardo. We went and signed Connor Washington. We went and signed Jack Baldwin. One goes, 3 very good players come into the building. One's 20, one's 18, one's 21. Good business.
With the squad, we've had a hell of a lot of injuries. We've had a lot of bad luck, I suppose. How challenging has it been or tempting has it been for you to dip your hand in your pocket again and get more? Or have you been patient?
No, I'm patient. You joke me. We played a crew the other night. We had a Turkish Messi on the bench. We had Mendes on the bench. We had Luke James on the bench. We had Kenny McAvoy on the bench. Look at the bench we had. We had an array of talent.
But it weren't that long ago when they were all injured.
No, I understand that. But we had an array of talent that's, you know, you joke me, bring players in for what? And even with the injuries, I said no, because our thing was, we agreed, if injuries happen, whatever, we would give our young players a chance. They would step up, and that's why Ricardo has played a lot of games. He's done brilliant. He's only just turned 19. You know, Ricardo, he's a monster of a man, and he's got so much growing to do as a footballer. He can be anything he wants. But he's got games. In the past, we would have gone out and signed a temporary centre-back on loan. Do you know what I mean? But we didn't. You know, I put my foot down, the gaffer agreed with me. No. Just like we could have signed a left-back in. Instead of putting Joe Newell back there at left wing back, whatever, Ollie Ludo was called up to the squad. Harry Anderson's next in line. Next summer, if someone leaves in a wide area, you know, let's say Mendes Lang, he's another one we've got to talk about, a new contract. You know, if the gaffer wants him to have one and the boy wants to stay. If Mendes leaves, who are you going to do? You going to go out and buy another wide player? Possibly not. You got Harry Anderson for the youth team, who's doing brilliant this year. So I said it last May with Jermaine, why would we sign more central midfielders who would come in the way of Jermaine Anderson's development? So why would we go sign a wide player next summer that would get in the way of Harry Anderson's development? Why would we sign another left back when you got Cozzy and then you got Ollie Ludo and you got Joe Newell there? It would only get in the way of their development. There are young players. So I've really got to be careful in certain areas when we see in the youth team, that lad there is 8 months away from the first team squad. Right, that means I don't need to sign a permanent player, you know, another player in that position. You know, he's good enough, he's going to step up. And that was really, really an important part. We had a conversation and made. The gaffer backs it totally, you know, and yeah, we're very happy with what's happening at the U team, the top of their league. There's some great players in there, and we feel there's another batch of them coming through. And the under-16s, there's even better players. Well, no disrespect to the under-18s, but there's another batch of players in there that are going to step up. So all of that again is important to make sure that we don't keep bringing in loads of players from outside the club with what we're seeing inside the club, because I'm loving watching our team with Jermaine and Joe Newell in it winning games. 2 of our youth team. Cozzy's fit and he's in there. There's 3 of them. 3 of the starting 11 come from our youth team. Brilliant.
How far off are we, do you feel, from us being a team that could A, get to the championship, but mainly B, staying there?
Close. Very close. This group of lads we got right now in 2 years will be absolutely magnificent. Magnificent. They're in the championship within that 2 years while they're getting magnificent. Watch out. I'm telling you, it'll be exciting. It's going to be something that we haven't seen before. I'm that convinced. Because the average age of the team right now is like 21.6. In 18 months' time, they'll be 23, 23 and a half. They're still not even at the peak of their powers, but they're going to be 2 years more experienced as a group. Watch out.
What lessons have you learned from the last time you were in the championship that you'll take into the championship with you again, if you do get there?
You got to start well. You got to do well at home. You start badly, you're in trouble. The 54 points we got was all because we started badly. If we'd started well, we would have been a playoff team. We've learned so much about the championship, both me, the gaffer, everyone at the club. You know, your squad needs to stay healthy. You know, you can't deal with injuries. If you're going to use the loan system, you use it cleverly, use it well. I felt last time with Berahino and George Storm, we used it quite well. And you need 1 if not 2 goal scorers on form and scoring goals, like we had with Gailey. If Gailey come in the summer instead of November, again, that's another situation. So they're all the things you learn and you pick and whatever. And I was speaking to Steve Evans in the summer. He comes to a lot of our games. I was telling him the same. Whatever you do, make sure you get yourself a goal scorer. You get a goal scorer in the championship, you've got a chance. You know, and it's so important. So there's loads of things we've learned. But forget all of that. Just with this group of lads and this team, and this team spirit and what we're doing at the training ground and what's coming through the youth team, the next 2 years is going to be very exciting, very exciting. I'm excited every time I want to watch our football team play.
You mentioned Steve Evans there and going out and buying a goal scorer. He went out and bought Johnson Clark-Harris, obviously. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, the boy's got 2 and 2 in the championship. He's only 19. I think.
Is that one that's got away?
For us, no. He moved on for whatever reasons. The gaffer didn't want him here, and it was the right decision for the club. I told Steve Evans to buy Stevie May in the summer. That was the one I told him to buy, and he did try and buy him, but I think he got pipped by Sheffield Wednesday. So once you're in a lottery with a club of that size and with those crowds, he was always going to go to Sheffield Wednesday. But I think Johnson Clark-Harris will do well for Steve Evans. He's the type of manager, he'll get the best out of the lad. I think he'll do quite well for him. I think Rotherham will finish in the top 14 there.
Finally, a couple of quick fire questions.
Sure.
Your biggest regret as a chairman?
Biggest regret as a chairman? My stupidity sometimes, like what I did with the Huddersfield fans, insulting them and getting embroiled in silly things. My immaturity. There's some of my big regrets.
Your biggest achievement?
As a chairman?
Yep.
My biggest achievement? Bouncing back from where I was in May, just gone.
Your fondest memory?
Old Trafford.
The one that got away?
Oof. There's a few of them. The one that got away.
Just one.
Just one. Just trying to think. Too many of them now. There's quite a few of them. Honestly, if you add them up, it'd be millions. We've missed out on, as much as we've done well as well, we have missed out on a few, you know what I mean? So, which backs up our philosophy again that it works, but there's been a good few. I'll come back to it, I think.
And finally, when people 100 years from now look back at your era, how would you want to be remembered?
Fans chairman, type of chairman that their fans could relate to. I've always got time for the fans, not just the suit that sits up in the boardroom or in the director's box. A proper football fan. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'm a football fan. I consider myself a fan first and a chairman second. So, of course, I'd like to be remembered fondly, but I'd like to be remembered for the person who did the impossible for Peterborough. So hopefully those best chapters and best years are yet to come.